Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to another week on my allotment. Been away for 2 weeks. Quite a lot's happened in those 2 weeks, so I'll start at the top and work my way down. The first thing to say is that my eldest son David's partner Nikki has given birth to their second child, a little girl called Gemma. Mother and baby are fine, doing well. In fact, she booked herself out of the hospital in Canada after a day so that she could take her eldest, Lexi, to school for the first day of term. So she must be well. So congratulations to them, and Cheryl and I are thrilled. Another grandchild. So yeah, that's all good news. Last weekend we went to my daughter's place because their son, George, it was his first birthday, of which he knew nothing. But we had a lovely weekend. We combined celebrating his birthday very, low-key, with sorting out their garden. They've just moved into a new military married quarter and it had been neglected for some time. The garden was in a terrible state. So Carl and I set to and sorted all that out, and then we had a lovely day out at Chester Zoo, which I've never been to before. So yeah, fantastic time. All good news. So pleased to report that. Something else I'd like to tell you. I'm going to have to eat my words a little bit. After bad-mouthing Gardener's World and saying I'm not watching it anymore, if you watch Gardener's World, if you're in the UK, because of COVID and the lockdowns, when that hit, they couldn't produce programmes in their normal way. So they started asking members of the public to send in their home videos of their garden. And it was so successful, they have continued it. And I have to say, that's one of the better aspects of Gardener's World, is to see ordinary people in their ordinary gardens. Anyway, in 2022, when we had that hot summer, I grew those gourd birdhouses on the arch behind me. And I submitted my own little video. They couldn't be more than 4 minutes long, I don't think. Anyway, they said they would keep it for a year, and if they didn't use it, they would delete it. Anyway, that was 2022. Never heard anything more. This week, I've had an email from them to say, we're very sorry we didn't get in touch. We love your video. We'd like to use it. Do we have your permission? Which is really odd because I sent it to them. Anyway, I have said you have my permission. And they're going to feature it. I don't know when. So Cheryl and I are going to have to start watching Gardener's World again. And so are you, of course. Anyway, that's another little bit of good news. So, yeah, I thought I'd keep you up to date with that. The sun is coming up. There's a lot to do on the plot. But I'd like to start with a funny story. Yes, so as the sun comes up, this story was, I saw it on the internet. Some lady was giving a lecture, and she interspersed the lecture with a couple of funny stories, and this one tickled my fancy. It's about a couple who were an American couple in their pickup truck driving to the mall to do their weekly shop, and as they pulled into the car park, the pickup truck broke down, and the husband went, "Oh, you go and do your shopping, honey, I'll try and fix the truck." So off she went, and an hour later she's coming back to the car park and she sees the pickup truck where it was, and there's a small crowd round it. So she makes her way through this little crowd of people, and to her horror, her husband is under the pickup truck and he's wearing shorts but no underpants, and he is tackle out. So she, as subtle as she can, she sort of bends down and tucks his crown jewels back into his shorts and stands up feeling very pleased with herself, looks across the back of the pickup truck. You guessed it, there's her husband. Apparently the mechanic needed 3 stitches in his forehead. Oh! Yeah, I thought that was quite funny. It tickled my fancy. Anyway, I would say today it's 6:40. Sunrise was at 6:22, I think. And very nice it is too. It's Saturday. Why is it Saturday and not Sunday, I hear you ask? Good question. Well, tomorrow we're going to Charles Dowding's Market Garden Homeacres. He has an open day every year. It used to be free and you didn't have to book, but of course, as with everything nowadays, it's getting more popular, and a large chunk of the very modest fee goes to the local charities in his area. So we're driving down to Shepton Mallet tomorrow to have a look at his garden. His garden, Homeacres, where he grows fruit and vegetables to make a profit, is the sort of thing we'd like to style our small holding on when we eventually get there. So I'm going to find it very interesting. It's a day out for my wife and I, but it's really for me a little bit of research. I will report back. Well, what's been happening while I've been away? Well, I bit the bullet and I've cleared the peas off this Harris fencing, and everything on this bed, the pea, the remains of the pea plants, all the weeds which were waist high, I dug 2 trenches and the lot has gone into that ground. In fact, there's some small bamboo canes at the end which just mark where those trenches were, because I'm going to grow the peas in exactly the same spot next year. So that's a job well done, a much tidier bed, and that's the peas sorted for this year. We have a lot of peas in the freezers. It was a good year for peas on the plot, so that's good news. Well, excuse the weeds, but this is 3 rows of main crop potato Cara. Another one that is blight resistant and didn't succumb to blight, so that's all good news. Well, this week I cut off all the top growth, and today I'm going to dig up one plant just to see what they look like. I haven't watered these since they went in. They went in on the 19th of May. So we'll see what I've got. While I'm here, here's something else. When David was living here with us a couple of years back, before Nikki and David went back to Canada, he went to the Malvern Autumn Show with us. And in fact, we booked tickets to go again this year. And he bought this veg trug. The idea was that they had a rental house in Chepstow at the time, and this would go in the back garden. And the idea was that he'd get little Lexi involved in growing fruits and vegetables. Well, they weren't there long enough for that to happen, so he passed it on to Charlotte and Carl, and in their old married quarter, Carl and Charlotte used it. They grew plentiful vegetables in it, and it was very successful. Now in their new married quarter, we're hoping they're not going to be there too long. So I said I would take it, bring it here, and use it, and I'm going to. So basically, if you don't know what a veg trug is, it's just a waist-high mini allotment, and it has a plastic sheet on it, but underneath it has a mesh hoop which lifts so you can get at the inside. Inside it has this sump arrangement, so when you fill it with soil, the water is retained in the bottom and the plants can seek it out. I don't know how the water drains off. In fact, I do now. I can see holes. I can see a hole down there, so the water can get out. So it'll hold a couple of inches of damp soil in the bottom. Anyway, they're not cheap, and I'll let you know how I get on with it. But of course, it's quite a large thing to fill. I don't have any spare soil, so I'm going to start by importing some manure from the pile and see how I get on with that. More on that another time. We had a storm, I think it was about a week ago, last weekend I think, Storm Lillian. It didn't really affect us. We had some high winds, about 40 mile an hour, but it was very brief, fleeting, and it did no damage at all. But it did push over my sweet pea tripod, and they're staying here simply to dry, and then I'm going to save my own seed. Sweet peas are lovely, but they're a lot of work, and you know, they're in the height of summer when you're supposed to cut all the flowers off so they keep repeating. You know, it's a lot of effort and time allocated to something that you can't eat. Anyway, I'm going to save the seed and we'll see if we grow them next year. Of course, today is the last day of August, so tomorrow is the 1st of September, and meteorologically speaking, that is the first day of autumn. So today is the last day of summer. Actually, from mid-July onwards, it was a very nice summer. We've had some very dry days. We haven't had rain for ages, so I'll put it down as a success. But the plot could not look better than it does right now. And I am very lucky. A lot of people have allotments in urban settings, and you know, they're not attractive places other than on the plot themselves. I'm surrounded by stunning countryside here, so it is a lovely backdrop, and I do appreciate it. The other thing, and I don't want to tempt fate, is because it's a very country setting. That's not correct English, is it? Because this allotment is in the country, there are no people around doing bad things on our plots. We have no crime here, and I know I'm tempting fate, but I've been here 8 years and we've never had a single incident. Something else I've done this week, I've started with these paths. I did tell you I had all this very thin plywood that the garden centre was chucking out, so I've brought it up here, and you can bend it and snap it. And so you might be able to see under these slabs. I lifted the slabs, weeded the path, and then I put the plywood down. The plywood should be better than the cardboard because it will last a lot longer. So that does look a lot neater. And if that's what I've done, I'll show you. Here's another little path up to this raised bed, and inevitably, even with the slabs there, well, it's docks in this case, and some sort of grass, but it's blimmin' unkept and untidy, and I don't like it. So slowly, maybe one per visit, I'm lifting the slabs, taking out the weeds, and then putting the plywood down and then replacing the slabs, and then it looks a lot neater. So that's a job for today. While I'm here, I'm happy to report this is a bed of crimson blush tomato. They're a beefsteak, as you can see, they're very large. Never grown them before, and being the crimson variety, they are blight resistant. And I've chopped all the leaves off, and I did that a couple of weeks back, and we're now cropping. It's quite funny to watch Cheryl's shoulders slump when I walk in the kitchen door at the end of the day with a truck full of these large tomatoes. In fact, the last lot I took home 2 days ago, the trug made 3 servings of tomato sauce, and they're all now in the freezer. So I shall be taking more of these home today. Well, I have mentioned it before, but it's going to be a bumper year for butternuts, and I cut all the excess growth back off the path. I've cleared the path so I can walk all the way up it now, and although the leaves are still very green on the butternuts, some of it has started to sag and slump, and I can see inside the bed now, and it reveals quite some crop. For some reason they are huge this year. You know, I've been growing butternut squashes for the 8 years I've had this plot, and I have never seen butternuts like it, and yet the season was so late getting started. I can't explain it, but I'm very happy with it. And it's the same with the pumpkins, you won't be surprised to hear. That's pumpkin zombie. And again, you can see the foliage is starting, well, it's got mildew, but that's perfectly normal. It's to be expected. And again, it's starting very slowly to reveal the pumpkins underneath. I don't think it's going to be my best crop ever, but I will certainly have the 12 I need to take to the farm shop. I think last year I took 35 pumpkins to the farm shop, and there was another half a dozen that I gave to family and friends. So it was my best year ever last year for pumpkins. And if I can carefully walk you down, I showed you these last time, I think. Very strange, and it's obviously cross-pollination. That's a pumpkin. Don't quite know what's going to happen with that. I mean, it's not greening up at all, so I think they're going to be duffers. I mean, I might take them to the farm shop, I'm not sure. I don't think people will want to buy them. All they want is a traditional orange pumpkin, as that one is going to be. Anyway, I shall have to see. I think what that tells me is don't save your own seed when it comes to pumpkins. Just grow fresh or buy fresh every year, and then you'll get pumpkins true to how they should be. Well, I think what this episode needs is something quite interesting. The Devil's Port Gate was an Elizabethan euphemism for the vagina. In the 18th century, bum fodder and arsewipe were both meant toilet paper. I think they still do, don't they? On an average day, Britons spend 14 hours and 39 minutes sitting down. That's a long time. Before dentist chairs were invented, the patient's head was clenched between the surgeon's knees. 80% of plane crashes occur in the first 3 or the last 8 minutes of a flight. Next time you're on a plane, you'll be, oh, we're okay. Only 5% of the world's population has ever been on an aeroplane. The Marianas Trench in the Pacific is so deep that a coin dropped into it from the surface will take more than an hour to reach the bottom. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? Spiders can survive for hours underwater by entering a self-induced coma. In Britain, spiders outnumber people by more than 500,000 to 1. The Natural History Museum in London has 22,000 drawers filled with beetles. Blimey. If dung beetles, we'll finish on a high. If dung beetles disappeared from the plains of Africa, its human inhabitants would be up to their waists in excrement within a month. I do like that one. We used to say in the army, it's always the same old shit, it's just the depth that varies. Yes, quite interesting. Much better. And like I say, because of the plywood rather than the cardboard, I shouldn't need to do that for a couple of years or more. Hopefully I won't blooming be here for a couple of years. Well, I have to say that's extremely disappointing. The potatoes in the trug are unblemished and perfect. The ones on the ground on the right, which are the big ones, have all got slug holes and wireworm holes and won't store. So if that's replicated throughout the whole crop, I'm going to get about a third of the potatoes I should. So clearly leaving them in the ground isn't really an option, so I think I might dig up a few more now. Okay, so I've dug up a complete row. Those are the ones that are unblemished. Those are the ones that have got a few holes in, but Cheryl can cut round them. And that pile there are ruined. What an absolute shame. However, I don't think it's all bad news, because I thought I'd have a look at the other main crop potato I'm growing, which is called Java. And those are the unblemished ones, and I have two that have been eaten. So I'm going to dig up a few more. That's a much better profile. Much happier with that. Well, that was easier than I thought. I filled it from one of my compost bays, and I had some spare broccoli plants that are left over, so I'm going to put the mesh over them and see how they get on. The plants don't look particularly good, but they've been pot bound for a month and eaten, so we'll see. But the trug is now full. Well, despite the disappointment with the potatoes, I do have a large sack of excellent Cara potatoes. Some more runner beans, which will be processed for the freezers. Beetroot, a red onion, and those potatoes have got one or two holes in, but I think we can work around them. And when I say we, I mean Cheryl. So not a very exciting crop, but it's all good stuff. Well, thank you for hanging around this long. You're a trooper. Another good day, lots of work done. I do now have a couple of empty beds, so that's inevitable as we move into autumn. If I had a polytunnel, I could grow more productively, but I don't, so I make do with what I've got. There's no doubt, with tomorrow being the first day of autumn, there is an autumnal feel to the plot, and the crops are moving from the summer crops, the fruit, that sort of thing, the salads, into the sort of more earthy crops, so beetroot, potatoes, leeks, spinach, parsnips, and so on. So equally as nutritious and just as valuable to grow, but yeah, there's a different feel. Well, thank you for joining me. I should be around next weekend, so until then, look after yourselves, take care, and bye for now.